Welcome to Bled Talk, the podcast where insightful conversations meet language learning. I'm your host, Samuel Bledsoe, and on this show, we dive deep into a variety of topics with fascinating guests from all walks of life. Whether you're an English learner looking to sharpen your language skills, or simply someone who enjoys thought-provoking discussions, Bled Talk is something for you. From engaging interviews to solo episodes filled with knowledge and inspiration, join us as we explore the world one conversation at a time. Get ready for a journey of learning, curiosity, and meaningful dialogues. Welcome to Bled Talk. All right, well, welcome everybody to this episode of Bled Talk. We're finally on episode 21. So we've almost been doing the podcast for about half a year. Yeah, I would say half a year. I guess 26 makes it half a year. But anyway, I'm excited. We have Wendy again. She's from episode 2 and one of the most recent ones. I can't remember which episode.
Would you rather? Whichever one it was, would you rather?
I would say, I know it was Would You Rather. I think it was probably episode like maybe 13. Yeah, I would say episode 13. We'll stick with that. But it was a lot of fun. And as most of you know, Wendy is my mom. So I'm going to ask her some questions that I get a lot here in Brazil, actually. So many people with lots of traveling, and now that the world is a lot more connected, I would say, I remember always listening to people talking about how small the world is, and I think with the internet, we've kind of really been able to really see that. Now we know a lot more news. We see a lot of things happening quicker. You can be on the opposite side of the world and how many ever hours in an airplane, but you can be there in less than a day. And so people are traveling more, people are going places, doing more daring things, and sometimes we forget that these people have parents. And so I think a lot of people want to know, and I'm going to ask you this, Mom, is how do you feel just in general about having your son or me here in Brazil?
In general, I mean, of course, I miss you and I wish you were here. But I also, I think it's kind of just great that you are there and living your life in a different place. And I think it's brave. And I like to tell people about it, when they ask. It's an interesting thing to say than, oh, well, he just lives down the street, which hopefully you will someday. But no, it's hard sometimes because, like I said, it's we wish you were here. But in other ways, it's a good conversation.
Yeah, it's something different to talk about, and especially from where we're from. There's not a lot of super exciting things that happen, and so when you bring up Brazil, I think people's eyes kind of open and they perk up a little bit, and like, oh, why is he in Brazil? What's he doing there? And which kind of leads me to another question. So it sounds like you kind of handled it pretty well, but how does it feel knowing that you have a grandson? Your first grandson is in Brazil? Would you say that that's worse or about the same? You can be honest.
Yeah, not to make you feel bad or anything, but right. I was with you for the whole time you were growing up. I know all the things that you did and all that, and I think it's harder because he's changing so often, and so much. But like you mentioned earlier, just in the introduction of this podcast, you said, the world is getting smaller just because of technology. And so I do get to see you guys share videos and pictures. And so I do get to see those things, but it's not quite the same, but it's the best we can do. And I, definitely appreciate that. But, and I'll sit there sometimes at work if I'm having a bad day and, well, not a bad day, or just have a moment, and I'll go play some of the videos that you've sent and watch him, and it makes me smile. It makes the ladies at work smile. They think he's so cute, because he is, of course. But yeah, that part's hard. that's a little rough, but just focus on coming here.
Yeah. Do you think that kind of helps you? Um, I'm going to say cope, but not cope and like you're not like you're suffering, but like,
No,
do you think that it helps you, like knowing that we're going to come back? Do you think that helps you with the process of kind of
I do.
accepting?
Well, and if we didn't know that, if for instance, if you were like, well, we're going to stay here indefinitely, well, then we would just make sure we were pretty much always planning either a trip there or planning a trip for y'all here. Um, that would just have to be how it was. You always have something planned if you were going to be there indefinitely as far as your permanent residence. But because that's I wouldn't want to think I don't know the next. I don't know if we'll see you again. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, sounds pretty dark, but it's
Yeah.
it's an honest thought. It's something, uh
Right.
it's kind of like what I was telling Diana the other day, is that you just never know. You never know what's going to happen, and people get as much as when you're young and you don't think anybody gets old, people do get old, and people go through things, and uh,
Yeah.
there comes a moment when their time is up, and you just don't know when that is. And when you're far away, it's not good. It kind of sucks because you can't just go back. The farther away you go, the more difficult it is for you to return, to make it back. When you live in a different city, it's pretty easy to go back. When you live in a different state, it's a little more difficult. When you live on the other side of the country, it's more difficult. And when you live in a whole different place, a whole other continent, then it makes it very difficult. I always try. I
Right.
think from a son's perspective, from the other side, I always think, I'm like, what if something happens? What if somebody is sick, or if they need me to go back? Like, how am I going to do it? How will I go back? Because
I know.
you
Right.
know, finding a way. I know that it's difficult to find a way here, but I think it's even more difficult to find a way from here to there. Because like I try to think of, like, even like money wise with airplane tickets and things. Um, from there to here, the amount of your salary that you make in a month, it would be less than somebody's who's working here. Because to get to St. Louis, I think that it's what, like 5,000 reais, and so for most people that's more than what they make in a month. So it's a little. I think that's a pretty scary aspect of it. I think that can be something that's very
Right.
uh very bad, is just not knowing what's going to happen next.
Right. Yep.
But how do you think you would feel if I were to say, oh, I'm gonna stay here forever, we're gonna live here and we're not gonna come back?
Oh, I mean, I think I would be sad, but I would accept it and probably just still hope in the back of my mind that you changed your mind.
Right. No, that makes.
Um, and well, oh, I mean, we visited and I really liked it there. I enjoyed it. So who's to say we wouldn't move there someday?
Right. You never know. You never know what's the next
It,
move. And but yeah, I agree. I think that kind of knowing that we'll come back can really help. It can help with how the anxiety. And then, like, what's the conversation like when you talk to somebody? How do you tell someone about the situation? Are you somebody who's like, oh, I just really hope he comes back soon, or you just kind of tell it how it is, and
well, basically
in the
tell them
situation?
that you're working on it. You're working on trying to get back here. And then they always say, well, why did he go there first instead of trying to bring her here, and trying to explain a little bit usually, and they usually get it. They understand. I said, well, he already lived there for a mission, and it was easier to go back. Um, and then they always want to know how you met. So that's always a fun story. I think
Yeah,
people really people really enjoy yours and Diana's story, your little love story. I think it's a fun one, and they enjoy hearing it. And everybody, there's so many people that ask me almost on a daily basis, when are they coming back? What have they heard? What do they know? Everybody's so interested. Almost should probably just start like a Facebook group or Facebook page, huh?
Right. Daily updates, start some type of social media just to let everybody know what's happening and what's going on. It's, I mean, it is, I think the anxiety is what kind of gets to you, because waiting a long time to go, think about, like, you're in a place and you're with somebody that you really want to be with, and then, or that you are with and you're happy, but in order to take them home, you have to wait for the government to say that it's okay. And,
Right.
And we all know that the government is not the fastest. And so you just wait.
Matter where you are. Right.
And it's a waiting game. And, I something I was telling Diane about the other day is that I think sometimes you get kind of tired of being the outsider. It's interesting at first, like, it's cool to go somewhere and everybody knows that you're different. And so they ask you questions and they're interested in your story, who you are and what's going on. But after time, you're the outsider, but they know enough about you that they don't really care to know anymore. Or they just, they just know everything, because you can only tell people so much. And then what happens is you kind of start to feel left out, because you are part of their life and their culture, but you don't understand everything from their culture. You didn't go through, it's kind of like, for us, there's certain commercials that you've seen on TV. There's movies that everybody has watched, and so there's catchphrases and things that just kind of play part of how you talk. And when you don't know all of those things, sometimes you're left out, and people kind of get tired of explaining that over and over again. And I think that's also an interesting thing for me, because I can take that with me when I bring Diana back to the States, because for her, I feel like she and me, we're both very lucky that I have friends that are very interested in making Diana feel like she's at home. That they want to know some Portuguese. They want to be able to communicate a little bit. I never thought in my life that I would get Austin and his wife to study Portuguese on Duolingo. Who would have thought, right? There's so many people that have taken extra steps and all of that there's they want to make Diana feel better when she gets here, when she gets there. And so many people at church who are probably excited and they want to ask questions. There's people who probably want to try the food. There's just so many people who want to just give her a big hug when she gets there. And
and I think that you guys might even be able to find somewhat of a Brazilian community even around, not that you want her to be involved in, the United States things, but then she may even be able to find some friends when she's just needing to feel a little more at home, because I think there's probably quite a few people.
There's a Facebook group on Facebook, but there's a Facebook group that has, I think, like 2,000 or maybe even 20,000 people and it's called Brazil in St. Louis. And so they do like Portuguese classes, they do activities and kind of celebrate the culture. And I'm sure that they speak Portuguese as well. And, it's difficult, because in my mind, I'm like, I really want her to learn and to practice her English, but at the same time, it'll, like you said, it'll be a really good opportunity for her to be able to kind of come home, if that makes sense. Like for me,
especially get together and do like
a churrasco.
Yeah, or even have like, how they have like Italian Fest in Collinsville, if they have like a Brazil Fest, or where they can show people their culture and they can spend time together, but yet while introducing that culture and those foods and those things to other people who would totally be interested in something like that.
Yeah, and I think that it's also a good opportunity to kind of help educate Americans as well, because if there's something that I've kind of learned outside of the United States, is that Brazil doesn't really do it either, but like the rest of the world, like in Europe and those places, everybody speaks 2 or 3 different languages, and they're kind of cultured on a lot of things. And in the U.S., I think a lot of people have just kind of put off their dream of speaking a different language. But speaking a different language can bring so much more to your life. It can really open. And not only does it open doors, but it shows you a whole new understanding of things that people that people can read, that people can talk about. It's more ideas. There's lots of
Right.
ideas in Portuguese that I've never heard in English, and there's lots of ideas. I've started to kind of study French again, and by doing that, the algorithm has somehow picked up that that I look at French. And so sometimes it shows me things in French, and from understanding it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I never really thought about that. And so I think that could also be something that could really open up in just by taking somebody from outside into the country. But I don't think that she'll feel like an outsider.
I think not that American, I think that we're anything greater than anyone else, but it seems to be that our culture flows over into a lot of other cultures. Like a lot of other places seem to enjoy getting into our, just, like you said, the movies, the catchphrases, the what's trending and all of that in the United States. For some reason, that seems to be a popular thing among them. So maybe that transition will be a little different, and that maybe she's noticed and hopefully a little more aware of some of those things
Yeah,
too.
no, I agree. And and the good thing about the U.S. that I had, I love my country, and I love Brazil too. But a good thing about the U.S. is that it's a lot easier to find things that make you feel at home, if that makes sense. Like here in Brazil, something that makes me feel cozy and it kind of takes me back to the States is when I do foods that I usually eat in the U.S.
Right.
And so, those kind of things are always good. And in the U.S., it's the same thing. We can make different Brazilian foods. We can make stroganoff. We can make all of these plates, and she can kind of feel at home with it. And then, with once again, going back to technology, on Netflix, Amazon Prime, all of these things, you can switch the language, and you can,
Yeah.
watch everything as if you were
Well,
back home.
and you even said it before that it's maybe a little easier to go from here to there. So, hopefully that you guys will be able to, have the enough to be able to go back and visit maybe on a yearly basis or something, something that your
Yeah,
family does.
yeah. Well, and I do
Easier to
want,
go back and forth at that
yeah.
point.
Well, and I want little Jeremy to not forget Brazil. I don't want him. Not that I don't think he's going to remember it in the first place. Like I don't think he'll remember living here, but
No.
I don't want him to grow up being Brazilian but not know what it was like, not know the people, not know his people, his culture, and so many other things that I don't want him to.
I don't know where that.
I don't want him to be just American. I want him to be Brazilian as well.
Well, and even your other children, even though they may not be born in Brazil or be Brazilian as far as their citizenship, they're still going to be half Brazilian because their mother is. You'll want them all to know
Yeah,
that heritage. So I think for sure, and I
and
think you're right. You know a lot of good people, and they'll help Diana hopefully to feel welcome.
yeah. Well, and it's good. And like you said, like we can come back to Brazil. And I think even like with dollars and the way that our currency works there, it's almost easier to travel and visit different places in Brazil. I always tell Diana that when we move back to the United States, there's a good chance that we'll be able to visit more places in Brazil then than we do now, just because of
Right.
finances, because it's easier. It's easier. There's a really cool place here. We went to Gramado and it was really fun, but if we were spending in dollars, maybe it would have been normal, okay, but here it's really expensive. And
Right.
so for her, for us, when we go to the more expensive places or the exciting places, our money will be worth a little bit more. And so it'll just be, I think it'll give a better situation. But
Man, that would make it easier on her, knowing that she's not like, it's not like she's never going to get to go back to Brazil.
yeah. And I think that's, and then, kind of tying it all the way back to the first question about how you feel, like, I think that's what makes it easier to let somebody go somewhere, to another country, another place, is that as much as it's sad to see someone go, that they'll be able to come back.
Well,
And
I think too, for me personally, I think it may be a little different in that I have never lived close to my parents in my married life, in my adult life. And I know, I don't know exactly how it feels, but I know some of it. I know some of the things that can be hard about it. But I also know that we've survived and and it's okay. So it's not a new thing for me.
exactly, and it's not, it's not the end of the world. It's not, there's plenty of things, like you said, are there struggles? Yes. Is it hard not having family nearby? Is it hard having a baby and not having anybody who you can trust to be with the baby, not having any breaks? It's difficult. And is it difficult to see other people who do have that? And it's hard not to feel envious. It's hard to, like, when you see your
Right.
friends who have their babies and their moms can come over and watch them, or they can leave them with somebody else. It's at times you're like, oh man, their life must be so much easier, but and it might be, but it might not be. And so it's hard. It's
You don't know. Like, you guys have some freedoms that they don't. Yeah, you don't have a you don't have a in-laws either side of you trying to tell you what to do all the time, maybe some of the time, but not constantly there telling you
right.
you're doing this wrong or do
Nobody.
that. You've got that freedom that, you're raising your son exactly how you want to raise him and not having to worry about all that. Sometimes it's nice to have the people to help you, but it's also kind of nice not having to worry about keeping those people happy all the time either.
Yeah. No, it's good. And, because like you said, not you're not going to agree all the time about everything. And we don't
You're
have to worry about getting mad because grandma gave the baby chocolate when she shouldn't have, or what, whatever it may be, those little things like that.
right. Too
Um,
much cheer.
well, but it's one of those things that, like, I think another thing is that Diana and I are also very, like, we want him to be raised right, but we're definitely open to we both trust what our parents tell us. And I think that's another thing. And, as much as you say it would be it's a plus to not have in-laws close. Sometimes I don't even think having in-laws either on either side would really change the way that things work, just because of
That's
how.
good.
And I also think just because of how I am personally, because I'm not somebody who, like, who
No,
wants
not.
people to come over all the time and lets people tell me how to do things. I kind of, I maybe that's a defect, but uh,
No, you're usually just like, thank you. I appreciate your opinion.
yeah, I tell people thank
I'll
you,
take that into
and I tell,
consideration.
right, and then then I tell my wife later, I'm like, yeah, we're not going to do that, but good idea, good. I'm like, I like where the heart is, but maybe not the mind.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's great. And just to kind of to end the episode, do you have any? I doubt really anybody's listening, but do you have any advice that you could give to a mom or a dad that their daughter or son is in love with somebody from somewhere else and they might be leaving?
Just hang in there, I think that the best thing that you can do for your children is support them in their choices, and the people that they choose. Know that you raised them the best you could to make good choices, and this is one of those choices, and it'll work out. I mean, if they have advice that they want to give, that's fine, but they may or may not take it. But just support them and love them and do all you can to stay in touch.
Yeah, no, that's good. I love it. Well, thank you, Mom, again for coming on
You're welcome.
the episode.
Always fun.
Yeah, and then thank you everybody else who's listening, and we look forward to seeing what you all have to say, and we'll see you next time on Bled Talk. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
I'll later.
Thank you for listening to Bled Talk. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more content. We are on all of the popular podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and we're even on YouTube. Don't forget to send in your questions and your suggestions. Thank you once again, and have a great day.